So they would come 3 days left and have to work night and day to cover my protagonization, being a protagonist. And they'd have to work real hard to get the job done because they loved me, they did it. It wasn't fair to them. So that's why we have this, so we understand that our shortcomings usually affect other people. So we teach this so you could say, well, let me first of all find my shortcomings so I could get them out of the way and I could be a blessing to everybody else instead of a drain. And then the organized people every once in a while still need to let the I personalities just have fun and wing something once in a while too, so they can't be so uptight that they can't ever do that. Amen. And then 401, getting involved. That's where we sit down with people, and this is really where the life coach, guidance counselor really begins. If somebody says, listen, I really want to work with kids, well, we'll hook them right over to Ara, and she'll have a plan in place to say, well, this is the process. I'd like you to read these books. I'd like you to just come to Children's Church, see what's going on. Obviously, a background test is going to have to be done on you because we do it with and just start to put them in that direction. And then have a 6-month meeting with the person and say, how's everything going? I thought I want to work with kids. I can't do it. I don't want to be. So then we put them someplace else. But to make sure everybody's fitting where Christ put them. I've often shared along those lines, if you told me we were having a baseball game, you want to play, I'd say, yeah, great, looking forward to it. Assuming I'm pitching, right? That's what they always get me for. Then all of a sudden, they give me a lefty glove and say, well, we need a lefty today. Well, you don't want me in that position. I don't even know if I could reach home plate with my left hand. I want everybody to be in the position that they're gifted to play. And you know what? I don't always know what that is. Sometimes you have to try a few different things to work it out. Sometimes the position you're in over here requires you to be an usher for a little while, work in Children's Church for a little while, do this for a little while, and then you could be promoted. But our goal is to make sure that when you stand before Jesus Christ, that you have no regrets. That you've completed everything He's called you to do. When it comes to evangelism, one of the conversations that was really hard for me, really hard. Right now, I don't know if someday in the future we can find somebody else. And I don't know if we're going to take an offering today or at another day. My Lisa Meyer, I keep saying my sister because she's my sister, and she knows me pretty much as well as anybody, probably almost as well as my wife. My wife knows things that I don't even know. She knows where I am. I don't want to forget this, but I'll tell you a quick story. I used to love going to Nathan's and play video games. We moved out of Westchester. We're living in Rockland. Hadn't been in Nathan's in 7 years. And one day, I was in Yonkers. I said, I wonder what video games are like now. It used to be a quarter and you could play forever. I just wonder what the games have developed to. So I went in just to see. I was there I got a hot dog and stayed 10 minutes. I don't even know if I played any games. I was just looking. And I went home, and the first thing my wife said to me when I walked in the door, she said, what'd you do, stop at Nathan's? I was, wait a minute, there's no way you can know that. So when I say someone knowing me, she knows me. But my sister also knows me, and some of the problems that I've experienced in the past is I'd be quicker to argue with my wife than I would my sister. And that could create a problem in ministry and in a family. Because the stuff Lisa had to tell me about what she wanted to tell me, I would have argued with my wife. And I have to confess that I vented pretty good to my sister. And just another teaching moment here. If I would have vented like that to my wife, it would have crushed her. She would have walked away feeling unloved, that her opinion didn't matter. I will tell you what the discussion was. So it was putting a drain on our marriage sometimes. I didn't realize it. We were partners. We did everything together. So my sister said, I have to talk to you about something that's a very touchy subject to you. She said, I have to talk to you about evangelism. I was like, what about evangelism? That's one of my favorite messages. I love preaching on evangelism. But I was shocked. Even as I said that, the response I get now is not a whole lot of smiles. And it even gets quieter. She said, let me ask you a question. Your outcome or your desire is eventually to get people excited about going and telling people about Jesus. I said, yeah, of course. She goes, that's not happening. What do you mean? There you go. There's the defensive. It's like, I don't get it. People are going to hell. She said, first of all, I want to tell you one thing. I've talked to the people here, and I got to sit down and really get to know them. She goes, I'll tell you one thing. They love you. They love you a lot. They would do anything for you. They're not doing it because they don't love you. And then she said, they walk away feeling guilty sometimes. Guilt never motivated anybody to do anything. So I didn't want to make them feel guilty. Maybe. A little bit. Well, there goes my personality. If I'm not doing something right, I'd rather get hit between the eyes and fix it than worry about how I feel. So sometimes I deal that way. So we had to talk about this, and I said, can we take the sermon out that I preach on evangelism and tell me what I said that caused people to feel like the other thing was that what they're doing is not important? That if it's not evangelism, it's not important. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I said that could ever... She said, well, I can tell you one of the issues. She said, when you talk about evangelism, you light up. I do. I don't get this over Bible studies. I don't get this way. If you would have asked me years ago if I was a visionary, I would have said, not really. When you start thinking about what a visionary is, being able to see things in the future. I really hope we got something wrong in the Bible about hell, but I don't think so. I hope there's a great error in the translation and that there is no hell. But I'm telling you there's not. There is a place. We went fishing last week. Where's Darren? Me, Darren, and Christian. If I had Dramamine, I would have taken one because it's wisdom. There was 6-foot seas. I don't know if you know what 6-foot seas are. They're big. I was fishing on 3-foot seas. It's nothing. I would fish all day long and rock back and forth. But 6-foot seas got to me. So within a minute of pulling out of the harbor, the three of us are sick. I mean, real sick. If you know something about seasickness, if you've ever had an upset stomach, you could kind of feel it coming on, and then it crescendos. I mean, you're real sick. You could feel it. The sweats, you turn green. And then usually when you're done, you kind of start to feel better. Well, being seasick is the crescendo of the feeling of being sick, and it doesn't go away whether you throw up or not. And you feel that way the whole time. Sometimes if you sit perfectly still, and it's just things that, I see things, I know things. I know if I sit in the middle of the boat, it's going to be better than sitting on one of the ends. So I went right to the middle of the boat and sat still and laid back. And if you sit real still, sometimes it goes down a little bit. But if somebody asks you a question, you turn and look at them, it comes right back. Now the only peace you get in the whole situation is knowing that the boat will dock. At some point here, the boat's going to dock and you'll feel better. But while I was on the boat, I had a chance, and I said if I had Dramamine, and I offered to Darren, I said, you wouldn't have taken it. I was in the Navy. I mean, I was in the Marines. I was on a ship for 7 months. He wouldn't have taken it. He goes, yeah, you're right, I wouldn't have. But the only peace you have is knowing that that will end at some point. So I asked this question. I said, can you imagine feeling like that for all eternity? Knowing that there is no dock that you're pulling in. That's how you will feel forever. You will never have peace. The Bible talks about the worm that never dies, the worm of torment. It just never dies. Hell is worse than anything you could ever think or imagine, just like heaven is better than anything you could think or imagine. I said, if I felt that way, I've been heartbroken. I've been at a place and people have killed themselves because they were hurting so bad, only to find out that how they were hurting was nowhere near to how bad they would be hurting from where they were going if they didn't know Jesus. I see this. I feel this. I couldn't imagine, we watched the movie Scully. I'm not giving it away. The plane went in the Hudson. Okay. Well, one thing happened is the ferry boat changed the course of where he was heading, changed the purpose of his life to deliver passengers, didn't really consider the importance of how much these passengers need to get to work, wherever they had to go, all became secondary when that plane was in the ocean and people were dying. Pulled the ship right up to the thing and started saving people. Now, I'm not saying you got to quit your job and quit everything you're doing just to go save people. I'm not saying that. But there has to be four things. First of all, I know anyone in here had an opportunity. If you came across somebody and they were crying and you asked what's wrong, and they said they lost a loved one or their child's about to get an operation, no matter what they said, that if you were faced with that opportunity, you would pray with them. I know you would feel it then. No question. So my goal is just to try to get you to a place in life where you're looking for those people instead of just waiting for them to come to you by happen chance. So one of the things that has to happen is opportunity. And again, we have this in place. I'm not going too far from this. Because after you do that, you have to have something for them. This is it. And going to church is not always the best thing. I don't want to go down that road yet. Opportunity is one of them. You have to be equipped to do the job when it comes. If I was the only guy there where the helicopter took off to go out and rescue, and I had to jump out of the plane and swim to the person, they would have drowned, and me too. I wasn't equipped, I wasn't trained. So if you're trying to do a work for the Lord, and you're not trained properly, it's going to be hard, and you'll do damage, and you're not going to feel good about it. So we're talking again about being skilled with the things of God, having the right tools. If I jump out of the plane, it would be wise for me to have fins, a wetsuit, and a tank, and what I needed. If I don't have the right tools, so we're giving you the tools. This is part of the tools. Availability is another one. If you don't make time for it, it won't happen. So you've got opportunity, training, availability. Obedience is another one. When God says go, go. So with that said, I just want to add one thing to it. It's not a matter of did I pray the prayer with somebody, and that's all that matters. Because sowing seed is just as important. And it's not just in the area of the lost. Our goal, the Bible says, my goal is to train you up to be a minister of the gospel. And the way I could explain this, if I give a positive and negative value to everything in life, every truth that's told has a positive value, every lie that's told is negative. Everything, if you're sick, it's a negative thing. If you get healed, it's a positive thing. So you're walking through life, and your goal is at the end of your life, when you look at the scoreboard, this life and this world is a better place because I was here. The first time you hear somebody say, I'm going to heaven because I'm a good person, and you just know a few minor scriptures that says our righteousness is filthy rags. that it's a free gift you need to receive. Well, you just took something that was very negative, probably the biggest negative ever, and shared something positive. And if they believe it, not only is their life change, which is positive, but they're going to share that with somebody else. This world, if you just did that and nothing else, this world is going to be a better place because you were here. But if you see somebody, and they could even be saved, you see them struggling, you go say what's happening, they're having problems with their marriage, and you give them the book Love and Respect, and they put it into practice, and their life, they don't get divorced, and their kids have parents. You've made this place a better place. And they could be Christians. God will lead you to those people. I'm going to end with one short testimony. I had a friend Tuesday night, we went to his wake. He died from cancer. He was only 42 years old. It was tough. I thank God I had several times through the last 35 years to talk to him. And I believe he knew the Lord. Well, the Bible says you'll know. First of all, let me say this. Joel Osteen's biggest problem that he has, people have with him, I should say, is because they asked him straight out to try to be divisive and cause strife. They asked him this question: are gay people going to heaven? And because he said, I don't know, I'm not the judge, that's where most of his flack comes from. Religious people jumped on that and said, oh, you won't condemn gay people. You won't condemn. It's not my job to condemn. I don't know where anybody's going. I could look at the fruit in their life and have a good idea based on what the Word says, but I am not the final judge. I can't say you know the Lord and you don't. That's not my job. So if you ask me that question, I'm going to say I don't know. Are gay people going to heaven? I don't know. Do they know Jesus? If they really know Jesus, they're going to heaven. I don't care if they're gay, drunk, child molesters, pornographers. That has nothing to do with it. That's a work in progress. That's the sanctification process that God's bringing us through to set us free from all those things as we follow Him. And none of them determine the outcome of our salvation. The only thing that determines the outcome of our salvation is when He asks the question, do you have a ticket? You have a ticket or not? You have Jesus, you have life. If you don't have Jesus, you don't have life. So I went to the funeral. And this thing with being used of the Lord, being available for God, wherever and whenever, whatever you tell me to go, I'll do it. It's an art that's learned. It's skills. If you were to say we're in war and you give me a jet fighter to say armed with nuclear bombs, if I can't do anything with that. I don't know how to use it. So if you're going to try to minister to people and do what God has called you to do, you have to learn some things. If you were in the hospital and you needed an operation, you won't want me there with a knife. But you don't want to be the Christian that the dying person says, I don't want them there. They don't know what they're doing. So I go to the funeral and I do what just comes natural to me. Something that I learned through over the course of the years. How to be led by His Spirit to go to the people that He needs me to speak to and make mistakes doing it a couple times till I hear His voice and I'm always fishing. I'm always throwing things out. How you doing and what's going on? I start out with trying to make friends or just catching up on old things. I don't walk up and say, hey, I'm a pastor now. You want to get saved or you're going to go to hell? Just started talking to people. And it's interesting that because of the seeds I've sown, there was 50 people I grew up with before I was saved that was there. And I can think back of over the years how many conversations I've had with almost every one of them. Now the devil takes what I said and they walk up going, hey Jack, I really do want to come to church, but it's been 30 years. You want to come? You could have came at least once. And I don't make them feel guilty. I try to reach them where they're at. If I think somebody's open, I might say, well, let's go out to eat one time, and I'll give them a book to read. I'll do whatever I can. So I witnessed to everybody I could. Bobby and Frankie are twins. They've had it rough. Their sister killed herself 3 years earlier. And she was a Christian. And I know I shared the gospel with her. I don't know what part I played with that. But if I played any part, that's awesome. She had something wrong with her, the medication she took. The side effects was suicide, and nobody watched her. So their brother dies of cancer. And I had a chance to talk with his brother. And like I said, we can't make the judgment on somebody, but you can judge the fruit. So I started asking questions to the family. I started asking to other people. And I asked, and I was talking to, they came and shared this information with me. When you make a stand and people know who you are, they will come to you. And he said this, he's not saved. The guy I drove up with wasn't saved. 30 years I've been witnessing this guy. And he said to me, whatever you do, don't give up on me. 35 years ago, I said, that's it, you're done. I'm not leaving you alone. You gave me permission to bug you the rest of your life. And I have. And we had an awesome conversation why he hasn't come, because he felt like when he did it, he had to be perfect, because that's just his C personality. If you're going to do it right. That's what's been stopping you? I said, I'm still not doing it right. If that's what's bothering you, come. And I told him this one. I said, it's like saying I can't take a shower because I'm dirty. No, it's the shower that cleans you. Come to church. So I was talking to him, and he said that he happened to meet with Danny. And he said, Danny opened the Bible and started telling him about Jesus. And he said, Joe, this thing is real. Well, to me, I feel good about that. I can't make his final judgment. I could just say, in my heart, I feel good that I have, better than if I've never talked to him, that's for sure. So I grabbed Bobby and Frankie and I said, listen, I know where your sister is, I know where your brother is, and you need to be there, we need to talk. I'm not letting you guys go to hell. I'm not ready. I said, I don't care if you're ready, we're talking. I played baseball with them, we grew up together, I could talk to them that way. You can't talk to everyone that way, but I earned the right to speak into their life. Talk to another guy, and here's the part I want to get to. After I found everybody in the room I could talk with, there was one kid there. I said, hey, how you doing? He said, I'm doing great. He said, I'm going to church. We live up here. I'm going to church not too far from here. And I was like, oh, you're going to church, huh? What kind of church? What do they believe there? Now, see, again, it's not about getting someone saved. Being available for God to use you is not only getting the unsaved person to pray a prayer of repentance. That's not what I'm talking about. Because right away I switched to some of the things we've been talking about. What does he believe? What are they teaching him? Are they teaching him that he could walk in victory, that we have authority over the devil? Are they teaching him that you could be healed? Or are they teaching him you just got to suffer through life, you never know what will happen? I didn't know, so I was fishing. I was also wondering, are you just attending church, or is it real to you? Are you just going to church to put a checklist off so you can say when I get to heaven I can show God all the checks and hope he lets me in? Is that where you're going, why you're going to church? So I started fishing. And he says, yeah, we've been going through a whole lot lately because me and my wife are really going after it. Talking about church. The devil's really trying to come after us because, we're really meaning business about God. So again, I'm feeling good. Wow, he's got it. But I asked him this question. I said, can you pinpoint the day that Jesus became real to you and you weren't just attending church? That your relationship went from knowing about Jesus to knowing Jesus. Guys, one of the major reasons I share what I'm sharing with you right now is so you can have these experiences. Not only here on earth. I'll tell you what he said brought joy to my life as much as my wedding day and having my own kids. Next to that, there's no amount of money I could ever earn that could do this. There's nothing else in life that compares to what this guy said to me. He said, I know exactly where I was standing. I could still see the phone booth like it was there today. I was standing right on the corner where Ricky got shot. For those of you who know my testimony, Ricky was my friend. We went fishing, we hung out, and somebody shot him. And that was what kind of got me to say, where's Ricky? What happens when you die? Where is he? Is he over? Is he done? Is his life finished? Or is there really a God? Is there really a heaven? Is he there? That's what was driving force behind me searching God. He said, I was standing on the corner right where Ricky got shot. I was looking at the phone book. I was 12 years old. He said, you led me to the Lord. Guys, you got to have these experiences. I've seen him throughout the years. He never told me he was going to church. He never said, thank you for leading me to the Lord. I didn't know he was going to church or not. I prayed with a lot of people. So I didn't know who it stuck on. I didn't know if they got it or not. But I prayed with a lot of people. But for him to come back 35 years later and be living a Christian life with a wife who's a Christian that are attending church, and him saying, when I was 12 years old, you prayed with me and I accepted the Lord that day. And then he said something else. He goes, you and Dennis used to go up the park to pray. You'd sit on the bench and pray. He goes, when I saw you guys going to the park, he goes, I'd walk up right behind you and sit behind the bench and listen. That's how I learned how to pray. Guys, there's no job, there's no money that could do that for you. And if you think that's good, one day I'm going to stand before Jesus with Louis on my side. And Jesus is going to say, thank you. Now, Louis was already saved. I mean, I had the privilege of leading him to the Lord, but I was fishing. What can I do to minister to somebody? What can I do to take this negative world and make some positive out of it? If I found out he was going to church and he was praying to saints, maybe the only thing I could have said is, you know, in Hebrews it says you can go boldly before the Father. You can talk to God. You don't have to go through somebody else. I could have, even though he was going to church, he might have been saved, I might have been able to take that little negative and make it a positive. When we drove home that night, the guy I was driving with that said, you know, don't give up on me. I said, Joe, I can't wait anymore. I'm not going to go to your funeral and wonder where you are. I'm not leaving here with some kind of commitment. And then we talked a little further, and that's why he told me why he wasn't coming. But you know what I always have with me in my car or someplace? I had the book, Getting a Grip on the Basics. It was in my car because I was bringing it to the guy at Verizon. I said, do this. I don't care if you take a week or a month to do a chapter. Just on your lunch break, just do a little bit, and then we'll sit down and we'll talk. I said, I'm not leaving here without some kind of commitment. I said, I'm not letting you go through another year without making this decision. And again, I could talk to him like that because we've had these conversations for 30 years. Guys, there's coming a day when you get to look into the eyes of your Savior. I don't want you to look in his eyes and feel guilty then. I'd rather you feel guilty now. I don't want you to look in his eyes and say, man, I wish I would have listened. So I'm going to leave you with this. I have to be careful too, because the bottom line is this. I mean, you have to know me. You have to give me grace. After having this conversation with my sister, you know what I tried to do? I said, well, if it's making people feel uncomfortable, maybe I shouldn't feel this way. I started to try to not make evangelism so important in my life. Just laying in my bed, just praying, talking to God. It's been one of the few times, and it's been a long time since God spanked me as bad as he did. He scolded me. He said, I put that there, don't you dare change a thing. I couldn't walk by a fire and see a baby in the window surrounded by flames, and all I have to do is go grab it and take it out and it'd be better, and me say, well, I'm busy, I gotta go to work, let somebody else go. I can't. I can't walk by people knowing that most of the people I'm walking by are gonna experience something worse than that if I don't do something. So I said about discipleship, I know it's needed. I want people to grow up that know Jesus and not be beat up by the devil anymore. That's important. But if somebody gets saved and never gets healed and goes to heaven and then is healed then, as opposed to the person who misses it and goes to hell, my heart goes to the guy who's going to miss it. We struggle through life, but in the end, we wind up there. Now, I'm not saying that these other things aren't important. They are. But we're a team. You guys are really doing an awesome job helping me care for people, and I do. If I ask people to raise their hand, who's talked to me personally and had me help you through a problem? Well, that's me doing discipleship. It's not like I don't do that end of it, but you can't do that end and not do the other end of it and reach the lost. So what I think was happening, somebody shared a vision. I don't know if he had it or he was sharing somebody else's vision that God gave him, that there was a boat that turned over and people were drowning. And he was grabbing people out of the water and bringing them up on dry land. Instead of turning around and going and help other people, there was a party happening, and they just started walking in that direction. And just while they were walking, the wet clothes came off, and they wound up with a top hat and tails and wound up in the party laughing and playing while these other people were still drowning. Listen, that's a vision for an evangelist. I said, God, I'm an evangelist. What am I doing here? But churches have a bent. Churches have a focus. So we care about souls. It's not a terrible thing. So what I have been doing, where my heart goes naturally, and if I've done this to you, I ask you to forgive me. It's not that I don't care about you, but if you were drowning and if you went down one more time, you would be dead, and I grab your hand and I drag you out of the water, and while I was dragging you out, you scraped your knee a little bit, and now your knee hurts, and you might need a Band-Aid, and you're telling me how bad your knee hurts, but to be honest with you, out of the corner of my eye, I know that there's one more person that's about to go down. I know your knee hurts, but help me get them. Can you help me get more? And I know it may sound like I don't care about your knee. And I know as we start pulling out people from the water, there's going to be people that, even though they're out of the water, if they don't get CPR, they're going to die over here. So I know people need to be trained to care for them once they're out of the water. But my heart's always going to go to the drowning person. And I don't want someone to come out of the water and then accidentally fall back in, so they need to be discipled so they don't go backwards. I understand the need of discipleship. We're commanded to do it. So what I've done is I pulled people out, and then it was like there's a line of us, and I'm trying to get everybody to look that way to get the people that are drowning, and I wasn't looking left or right as much as I should have as a pastor. It's interesting when you allow somebody to come into your life and really look at it and speak into it and not have to hold anything back. Pastor Lisa and Pastor Bucky had some real insight to some of the things we're going through and has given us tremendous amount of help. You know, probably who I did the most injustice to, probably Ara. And I use it as a testimony like it was a good thing. I don't have to do a thing with Children's Church. It's like all the drowning kids that came off the boat, she's got them. I don't have to worry. I never thought about Children's Church curriculum. I never had to worry. You know, she never said, Pastor Jack, I can't make it to church on Sunday, and leave it up to me to find volunteers to fill it. Never. So because she'd done her job so well, you know, it's like, okay, I'm looking that way. You know, I looked in Christina's eyes because she came out of the water and she's dealing with the youth. Great, she's taken care of. And I looked her in the eyes and went, man, I missed it. I need to care about her. I need to see how she's doing. And guys, I need help with this. I need your patience and your grace. I hope I've shared where my heart is so you understand it's just that I don't care. But God put this in me. I remember the most devastating time of my life by far. I mean, it hurt when Ricky died, and that threw me for a loop, and I cried a lot. But when Marilyn said, listen, I think it's better we don't see each other anymore, and she left, that was a year before we were married. She didn't do it while we were married. I was devastated. I remember waking up not wanting to feel that way anymore. Now, suicide would have never been a thought in my life because I was smart enough to know I was already saved, that there will be an end to this. But people who are in that position who don't think there's an end, they're in trouble. They want to end it, so they will end it however they have to. I know what that feels like. I can't bear the thought of somebody feeling that for all eternity. So we're putting tools and keys in your place for you to be able to help people when you run across them. All I ask is you to listen to God, and when He says help that person, I don't care what help it is. You know, it's interesting as we had the conversation, and I'm closing now, I'm mindful of the time. Having the conversation with Lisa and Bucky, she said, you know what, 90% of the time God leads me to Christians. Well, that counts. Let's stand.